Weeks passed on the jungle moon. Elias and Kiraveth fell into a strange but comfortable routine. She hunted for fresh meat while he worked on projects she did not understand. Her cubs grew stronger every day, their small bodies filling out with healthy muscle, their golden eyes growing bright and curious. Kiraveth watched the human carefully. She was trying to understand him. He was so different from anything she had ever known. He was weak in all the ways the Felisari valued strength. He could not run fast. He could not climb trees. His senses were dull compared to hers. If a predator attacked, she would have to protect him, and yet he was not useless. Far from it, she first noticed it when he began digging in the dirt near the spring. He made long channels in the earth, connecting the water to flat areas he had cleared of plants. She thought he was making some kind of trap. But when she asked, he explained something that confused her completely. "I am making a farm," he said. "I am going to grow food." Grow food? The concept was almost impossible for her to understand. The Felisari did not grow food. They hunted it. They took it from the land. When the food in one place was gone, they moved to another place. This was how things had always been. Elias showed her the seeds from his emergency kit. Small brown things that looked dead and useless. He planted them in the dirt and covered them with soil. He watered them every day. And then slowly green things began to appear. Tiny plants that grew taller and stronger with each passing day. Kiraveth was amazed. The human was making life appear from nothing. He was commanding the earth to feed him, but that was not all. Elias had captured some of the small animals that lived near the camp. Furry creatures with long ears and round bodies. Kiraveth had eaten many of these animals. They were easy prey. But Elias did not eat them. He built a cage for them and gave them food and water. "What are you doing?" Kiraveth asked. "Why do you not eat them?" "I am keeping them," Elias explained. "They will have babies. The babies will grow up and have more babies. Soon I will have many of these animals, and I can eat some while keeping others to make more." Kiraveth stared at him. "You are growing animals, like you grow plants?" "Yes," Elias smiled. "Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. We call it farming and herding. Instead of hunting until all the animals are gone, we take care of them. We help them grow, and they feed us forever." This was madness, soft madness. The Felisari were warriors. They did not take care of prey. They killed prey. The idea of helping animals grow so you could eat them later seemed backward and strange. But then Kiraveth looked at her cubs. They were playing near the cage, watching the furry creatures with curious eyes. They were healthy. They were strong. They had milk every day because Elias's machine could make it. They would grow up without knowing the hunger that had almost killed them. Maybe soft madness was not so bad. She began to help him. She used her strength to clear land and carry heavy logs. She used her sharp senses to find the best soil and the cleanest water. She watched and learned as Elias taught her the human ways. And in return, she taught him about her people. The Felisari had once been great. Before the plague, they had built cities that reached the clouds. They had ships that traveled between stars. They had art and music and philosophy. Kiraveth's grandmother had told her stories of those days, passed down through generations. But all of that was gone now. The knowledge was lost. The technology was broken. Her people had become savages, fighting over scraps like animals. "It does not have to be this way," Elias said one evening. They were sitting by the fire, watching the moons rise over the jungle. "Your people can learn these things again. They can rebuild." Kiraveth shook her head. "The brides will never work together. They hate each other. They fight and kill and take. It is all they know now. Then we teach them something new," Elias said simply. "We show them that there is another way." She looked at him with something like wonder in her golden eyes. This small, soft creature truly believed he could change the world. He truly believed that kindness could defeat savagery. It was foolish. It was impossible. And yet, sitting there with her healthy cubs sleeping nearby, with food growing in the fields and animals multiplying in their cages, Kiraveth found herself believing it too. Word began to spread. The jungle had eyes and ears everywhere. Other Felisari heard whispers about the strange valley where food was plentiful and cubs did not starve. They heard about the exiled princess and her alien bonded. They heard about milk that came from machines and plants that grew in rows. The first visitor came after 2 months. She was a young mother, barely more than a child herself. She carried twin cubs in her arms, both of them silent and still. She stood at the edge of the camp and stared at Kiraveth with desperate eyes. "Please," she whispered. "They are dying. I heard you have food. I heard you have milk. Please." Kiraveth looked at Elias. He was already moving toward the synthesizer. They fed the cubs. They fed the mother. They treated her wounds and gave her a place to sleep. When she woke the next morning and saw her children breathing strongly, she wept. Kiraveth had never seen a Felisari weep before. More came, one by one, then in groups, starving mothers, orphan cubs, wounded warriors who had been thrown out of their prides for being too weak. They all came to the valley, drawn by the stories of the humans' magic. Elias taught them all. He showed them how to plant seeds and dig channels for water. He showed them how to build cages and care for animals. He showed them how to work together, sharing tasks and sharing food. The Felisari learned slowly. These ideas were strange to them. The concept of planning for tomorrow instead of taking everything today was difficult to accept. But they saw the results. They saw the fields of green plants. They saw the growing herds of animals. They saw cubs with full bellies and bright eyes. Kiraveth became their leader, not through violence, but through example. She worked harder than anyone. She learned faster than anyone. She made sure everyone was fed and everyone was safe. The other Felisari began to look at her with respect. One evening, Elias found her standing at the edge of their growing village, looking out at the jungle. Her cubs were playing nearby, now old enough to run and wrestle and hunt small insects. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Kiraveth was quiet for a moment. "I am thinking about my father," she said finally. "He tried to unite the prides through strength. Through war, he failed." She turned to look at Elias. There was something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Something soft and warm. "You are teaching me another way," she said. "Not through war, but through food, through care, through this thing you call decency." She had finally learned that word. Elias smiled at her. "Is it working?" Kiraveth looked back at the village, at the mothers learning to farm, at the cubs learning to build, at the new world they were creating together. "Yes," she said. "I believe it is." But she knew it could not last forever. Sooner or later, the other prides would notice. Sooner or later, Thalrak would come. And when he did, everything would change. The village had grown beyond anything Elias could have imagined. More than 60 Felisari now called it home. Mothers, cubs, elderly ones too weak to survive in the wild prides. They had built shelters from wood and leaves. They had planted fields that stretched across the valley floor. The animal herds had multiplied until there was more meat than they could eat. For the first time in generations, Felisari children were growing up without knowing hunger. Elias walked through the village every morning, checking on the farms and the animals. The Felisari mothers greeted him with nods of respect. The cubs followed him around, fascinated by this strange creature who had changed their world. He had learned enough of their language to speak with them easily now. Kiraveth's 3 cubs were the oldest in the village. They had grown from tiny starving bowls of fur into strong young Felisari. The two females were already taller than Elias. They had their mother's golden eyes and fierce spirit. The male was smaller but quick and clever. He followed Elias everywhere, asking endless questions about humans and their strange ways. "Why do you not have claws?" the young male asked one day. Elias held up his hands and wiggled his fingers. "We have these instead. They are not as sharp as claws, but they can do many things. They can build, they can write, they can create." The cub looked at his own clawed hands. "Can claws not create?" "They can," Elias said, smiling. "But you must choose to use them for creation instead of destruction. That is the hard part." Kiraveth watched these conversations with warmth in her heart. Her son was learning things she could never teach him. Her daughters were learning that strength came in many forms. They were becoming something new, something better than what the Felisari had become, but she knew the peace could not last. She had been watching the jungle. She had been listening to the whispers that traveled through the trees. The other prides were talking about the Miracle Valley. They were curious. They were jealous. And Thalrak was angry. He came on a morning like any other. The sun was rising over the mountains. The farmers were walking to the fields. The cubs were playing near the spring. Then the scouts came running back, their eyes wide with fear. "Warriors!" they shouted. "Many warriors, coming from the north." Kiraveth moved fast. She gathered the mothers and cubs and sent them to the far side of the valley. She ordered the elderly to hide in the shelters. Then she climbed to the top of the hill at the center of the village and looked out at the approaching force. There were 50 of them. Maybe more. All males. All warriors. They wore armor made from bones and teeth. They carried weapons stained with old blood. They moved through the jungle like shadows, silent and deadly. And at their head was Thalrak. He was massive. Even among the Felisari, he was huge. His fur was black as night, his eyes burning red with battle madness. Scars covered his body, each one a trophy from an enemy he had killed. He had murdered Kiraveth's father with his bare claws. He had taken the Storm Pride and made it his own. He was the most feared warchief on the moon. He stopped at the edge of the village and looked around with disgust. He saw the fields of crops. He saw the pens of animals. He saw the peaceful shelters where families lived together. And he laughed. It was a cruel sound, a mocking sound. "What is this?" He roared. "The great princess of the Storm Pride has become a farmer? She plays in the dirt like a cub?" He spat on the ground. "Your father would be ashamed." Kiraveth stood tall on the hilltop. "My father would be proud," she said, her voice carrying across the valley. "He wanted to save our people. That is what I am doing." Thalrak laughed again. "Saving them? By making them weak? By teaching them to grow food like prey animals?" He shook his head. "No, princess, I am here to save them from you. I am here to take this valley and everything in it, including you." Elias had been standing near the shelters, making sure the cubs were safe. But when he heard Thalrak's words, he walked forward. He moved through the crowd of frightened villagers and climbed the hill to stand beside Kiraveth. The Felisari warriors stared at him. Some of them had never seen a human before. They saw his small body, his bare skin, his lack of claws or fangs. They saw nothing but weakness. Thalrak looked at Elias like he was looking at an insect. "What is this? A pet? A toy?" He turned to his warriors and laughed. "The princess has taken an animal as her bonded. This is what the Storm Pride has fallen to." The warriors laughed with him. But Elias did not flinch. He did not step back. He stood there on the hilltop and looked at the giant warchief with calm eyes. "I am Elias Vance," he said clearly. "I am a commander of the Terran Exploration Corps, and I am bonded to Kiraveth of the Storm Pride." Thalrak stopped laughing. There was something in this small creature's voice, something that did not match his weak body, something that made the warchief pause. "You speak our language," Thalrak said slowly. "You stand beside the princess. You claim to be her bonded." He showed his fangs in a cruel smile. "Then you know our laws. When a warchief challenges for a mate, her bonded must fight or surrender her." Elias felt his heart go cold. He looked at Kiraveth. She was staring at Thalrak with hatred burning in her eyes. "No," she said. "I will fight in his place. I am a warrior. He is not. I will face you, Thalrak." But the warchief shook his head. "That is not our way, princess. The bonded must fight. If he hides behind you, everyone will know that humans are cowards. Everyone will know that your teachings are the teachings of weakness." He spread his arms wide. "I am being generous. I am giving him a warrior's chance to die." Elias understood what was happening. This was not just about the valley. This was about everything they had built. If he refused to fight, if he let Kiraveth fight for him, the other Felisari would lose respect for human ways. They would believe that Elias was weak. They would believe that his teachings were weak. Everything would fall apart. He looked at Kiraveth. She was shaking her head, her eyes filled with fear. "No," she whispered. "Elias, no. He will kill you. Please, let me fight." Elias reached out and took her clawed hand in his small, soft fingers. "If I hide behind you," he said quietly, "then I prove that humans are weak. Everything I have taught will mean nothing. They will go back to the old ways. They will fight and kill and starve." Tears were forming in Kiraveth's golden eyes. "I cannot lose you," she said. "You saved my cubs. You saved my people. I cannot watch you die." Elias squeezed her hand. "Then have faith in me," he said. "You do not know what humans are capable of. Neither does he." He turned to face Thalrak. The massive warchief was grinning, already tasting victory. "I accept your challenge," Elias said. "Tomorrow at dawn, I will fight you." Thalrak's grin widened. "Brave little creature," he said. "Foolish, but brave. Tomorrow, I will tear you apart, and then the princess will be mine." He turned and walked back to his warriors. They made camp. At the edge of the valley, their fires burning through the night like hungry eyes. Elias stood on the hilltop and watched them. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. He was going to fight a 7-foot killing machine with his bare hands. But he was human. And humans had one advantage that no other species in the galaxy possessed. They simply refused to die. The ship was dying. Commander Elias Vance could hear it in the way the metal screamed around him. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms filled the air with their angry sounds. The display screen showed nothing but bad news. Engine failure. Life support damaged. Navigation systems dead. He had been alone on this survey mission for 3 months. The Terran Exploration Course had sent him to map the outer edges of known space. It was supposed to be simple work, quiet work. Now his ship was falling apart around him, and he was very far from home. The FTL drive had broken during a jump. Something had gone wrong deep inside the machine. Elias did not understand what happened. He was a commander, not an engineer. All he knew was that his ship had thrown itself out of faster-than-light travel and into an unknown star system. The damage was too great. He could not fix it alone. Through the cracked view screen, he saw a small moon covered in green. Jungles, water, atmosphere readings showed breathable air. It was his only chance. Elias grabbed the emergency controls and aimed his dying ship toward the moon. The entry into the atmosphere was rough. Fire surrounded the hull. The ship shook so hard that his teeth rattled. He held on and prayed to whatever gods might listen to a lonely human falling from the sky. The crash was violent. Trees exploded around him. Metal tore like paper. When everything finally stopped moving, Elias found himself hanging upside down in his safety straps. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His left arm hurt badly, but he was alive. He cut himself free and crawled out of the wreckage. The jungle air hit him like a warm, wet blanket. Strange sounds filled the forest around him. Birds that did not sound like birds. Insects that buzzed with deep, heavy voices. The trees were massive, rising hundreds of feet into the sky, their leaves blocking most of the sunlight. Elias spent the first day just surviving. He pulled supplies from the broken ship. Emergency food packs, water purification tablets, a medical kit that he used to treat his wounds. The ship's synthesizer still worked, which was good. It could make basic food and nutrients from raw materials. It would keep him alive. He found a fresh water spring not far from the crash site. The water was clean and cold. He set up his emergency shelter nearby and began to make a small camp. He did not know how long he would be here. The distress beacon was sending its signal into space, but this was uncharted territory. It might take months for anyone to find him. It might take years. On the second day, Elias began to explore. He needed to understand this place. He needed to know what dangers lived here and what resources he could use. The jungle was thick and difficult to move through. Massive creatures moved in the distance. He saw something that looked like a six-legged elephant pushing through the trees. He saw predators with too many teeth watching him from the shadows. He learned to be careful, but the most important discovery came on the third night. Elias was sitting by his small fire, eating a tasteless meal from his emergency supplies. The moons of this world hung in the sky above him. There were 3 of them, each a different color. It was beautiful in a strange way. He was just starting to feel a little bit peaceful when he heard the sound. It was a growl, low and dangerous, coming from the darkness beyond his firelight. Elias grabbed his emergency pistol and stood up slowly. His heart was beating fast. He had seen the predators on this moon. He knew how dangerous they could be. He pointed his weapon toward the sound and waited. What came out of the shadows was not what he expected. She was tall, at least 7 feet, maybe more. Her body was covered in bronze-colored fur that shimmered in the firelight. Her face was like a great cat, with a strong jaw and sharp fangs that showed when she breathed. Her eyes were golden, bright like small suns, and they burned with exhaustion and fury and desperation. She was humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs. She walked upright like a human. But everything else about her was feline, predatory, dangerous. She wore armor made from leather and bone, but it was damaged and stained with old blood. A long tail swished behind her, low and aggressive, and on her back, clinging to her fur with tiny claws, were 3 small cubs. The female growled at Elias again. She tried to step forward, to threaten him, to drive him away from this water source. But her legs shook. She was wounded. He could see the deep cuts on her side, the way she held one arm against her body. She was starving, dying, and still she bared her fangs at him. Still she tried to protect her young. The cubs were tiny. 2 females and 1 male, Elias would later learn. They mewled weakly, their small voices full of hunger and fear. They were just babies. They were dying too. The female took one more step toward Elias. Then her legs gave out. She fell to her knees, then onto her side. Her golden eyes stayed open, watching him, waiting for the killing blow. This was how things worked in her world. The weak died. The strong survived. She had lost, but Elias did not attack. He did not run away. Instead, he slowly lowered his weapon and looked at this fallen warrior and his starving children. He thought about what to do. He could leave. He could ignore this creature and her cubs. They were not his problem. He had his own survival to worry about. But Elias Vance had not joined the exploration corps because he wanted to ignore suffering. He had joined because he wanted to help. He wanted to discover new worlds and new people. He wanted to make the universe a little bit better than he found it. He looked at those 3 tiny cubs, their eyes barely open, their small bodies shaking with hunger. He thought about the synthesizer back at his camp. He thought about what it could make. Milk. It could make milk. Elias put away his weapon and slowly walked toward the fallen female. She tried to growl at him, but she was too weak. Her golden eyes watched him with confusion and fear as he knelt beside her. He did not touch her. He did not threaten her. He simply spoke in a soft, calm voice. "I am not going to hurt you," he said. "I am going to help." She did not understand his words, but something in his tone, something in his eyes, made her stop growling. She watched as this strange, soft creature stood up and walked back to his camp. She was too weak to follow, too weak to fight. All she could do was wait and hope that death would be quick. She had never felt hope for anything else. Elias returned quickly. He carried a warm container filled with white liquid. The synthesizer had worked perfectly. The milk was modified to be easy to digest, full of proteins and nutrients that young mammals needed to grow strong. The female was still on the ground where she had fallen. Her golden eyes followed his every movement. She was waiting for the trick, waiting for the trap. In her experience, kindness did not exist. Only power existed. Only survival. But this strange creature did something she did not expect. He walked past her and knelt beside her cubs. The 3 tiny ones had crawled off her back and were lying in the grass, too weak to cry anymore. Their small bodies barely moved. Elias gently picked up the smallest one, the male. The cub was so light, so fragile. He could feel the tiny heartbeat against his palm, fast and desperate. He brought the container to the cub's mouth and let a few drops of milk touch its lips. The cub's tongue came out. It tasted the milk. And then, suddenly, it was drinking, desperately, hungrily. Life was returning to those small golden eyes. The female watched this. She watched her son drink from the hands of this alien creature. She watched him grow stronger with every swallow. Something changed in her eyes. The fear began to fade. The anger began to soften. What replaced them was something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Elias fed all 3 cubs. One by one, he held them gently and gave them the milk they needed. The 2 females were stronger than their brother, but they were still dangerously weak. They drank and drank until their small bellies were round and full. Then they fell asleep in the grass, breathing softly, peacefully. When the cubs were fed, Elias turned to the mother. She was watching him with those burning golden eyes. He could see the questions there, even if she could not speak his language. Why? Why was he helping? What did he want? He brought the container to her. There was still milk left. He offered it to her the same way he had offered it to her children. No demands, no threats, just an open hand and a gift freely given. She hesitated. Among her people, accepting food from another was a sign of submission. It meant you were weak. It meant you owed them a debt. But she was too tired to fight, too hungry to refuse. And her children were alive because of this creature. She drank. The milk was warm and sweet. It filled her empty stomach and gave strength to her broken body. She drank until the container was empty, and then she lay back in the grass and let herself rest. For the first time in many days, she was not afraid. When she woke up, it was morning. The strange creature was nearby, cooking something over his fire. Her cubs were sleeping beside her, their small bodies warm and healthy. She could hear their soft breathing. She could see the way their fur had regained its shine. This alien had saved them. All of them. She sat up slowly. Her wounds still hurt, but she felt stronger. The creature noticed her movement and looked over at her. He smiled. It was a strange expression on his flat, furless face, but she understood it somehow. It was friendly. It was kind. She needed to speak with him. She needed to understand Dot. She touched her chest with one clawed hand. "Kiraveth," she said. Her voice was rough and deep, like stones grinding together. "Kiraveth." The creature seemed to understand. He touched his own chest. "Elias," he said. "Elias Vance." Kiraveth repeated his name carefully. Elias. It felt strange on her tongue, but it was the name of the one who had saved her cubs. She would remember it forever. Over the next few days, they began to learn each other's language. Kiraveth was intelligent and quick. She picked up Elias's words faster than he picked up hers. Soon they could communicate, at least in simple ways. She told him her story. Kiraveth was a princess. Her father had been the great chief of the Storm Pride, one of the largest and most powerful groups of her people. They called themselves the Felisari. They were warriors, hunters. For thousands of years, they had ruled this moon with strength and pride. But then the plague came. It happened before Kiraveth was born. A terrible sickness that spread through her people like fire through dry grass. It killed many, but it killed males more than females. Whole generations of Felisari men died coughing blood. The animals they hunted for food also died. The livestock they had raised for milk and meat vanished almost completely. The Felisari civilization collapsed. The great cities fell silent. The spacefaring ships her ancestors had built rusted and broke. Her people scattered into the wilderness, forming small groups called prides. They fought each other for the few resources that remained. They became savage. Kiraveth's father tried to change this. He tried to unite the prides. He tried to bring peace. But there were those who did not want peace. They wanted power. Warchief Thalrak murdered her father. He took control of the Storm Pride and drove Kiraveth into exile. She fled with nothing but her 3 newborn cubs and the wounds from her escape. She had been running for many weeks, starving, desperate, watching her children grow weaker every day. And then she had found Elias. When she finished her story, Elias was quiet for a long time. He looked at this fierce warrior who had lost everything. He looked at the 3 small cubs playing in the grass nearby, their bellies full, their eyes bright with life. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry for what happened to your people. I'm sorry for your father." Kiraveth did not know how to respond to this. Among her people, apologies were rare. Sympathy was weakness. But coming from this strange creature, it did not feel weak. It felt genuine. It felt warm. She looked at him carefully. This Elias was small and soft. He had no claws, no fangs. His skin was bare and fragile. He would not last 1 minute against a Felisari warrior in combat. And yet he had shown more courage than many warriors she had known. He had helped a stranger when he had nothing to gain. He had fed her children when he could have left them to die among the Felisari. Debts were sacred. If someone saved your life, you owed them everything. If someone saved your children, you owed them more than everything. Kiraveth stood up slowly. She walked to where Elias was sitting and knelt before him. He looked confused, maybe a little afraid. But he did not run. She placed her clawed hand over her heart. She spoke the ancient words, the words her grandmother had taught her, the words that had not been spoken in many generations. "You have fed my blood," she said, her voice deep and serious. "My claws are yours. My hunt is yours. Until the stars fall silent, I am your bonded." Elias blinked at her. What?" Kiraveth looked at him with those fierce golden eyes. "You saved my cubs. There is no greater gift. I am now bonded to you. Your enemies are my enemies. Your home is my home. I will protect you until I die. Elias tried to explain that he had just been helping, that she did not owe him anything, that he had done what any decent person would do. Kiraveth did not understand this word, decent. It had no meaning in her language. In her world, you did not help others without reason. You did not give without expecting something back. This human was very strange, but she was bonded to him now, and she would learn. The night before the battle was long and quiet. Kiraveth sat with Elias near their shelter, her cubs sleeping inside. She had not spoken much since he accepted the challenge. She did not know what to say. "Tell me about humans," she said finally. "Tell me why you think you can win." Elias looked up at the 3 moons hanging in the sky. "On my world, long ago, my ancestors were not the strongest creatures. There were animals bigger than us, faster than us, with sharper teeth and deadlier claws. We should have died. We should have become extinct. But you did not," Kiraveth said. "No, we did not." Elias smiled a strange smile. "Do you know how we hunted? We did not chase our prey. We followed it. For hours. For days. We walked after it while it ran. It would run and rest. We would keep walking. It would run again. We would keep walking. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion, and we would catch it." Kiraveth stared at him. "That is impossible." No creature can hunt like that. Humans can. We are not fast. We are not strong. But we can go farther than anything else that lives. We can outlast anything. It is how we conquered our world. It is how we conquered the stars." He looked at her with quiet determination. "Thalrak is faster than me, stronger than me. He will hit me harder than I can hit him. But I only need to do one thing, not fall down." The dawn came too quickly. The whole village gathered at the fighting circle near the spring. Thalrak's warriors stood on one side, grinning and shouting insults. The villagers stood on the other side, quiet and afraid. The mothers held their cubs close. The elderly prayed to old gods who had not answered in generations. Thalrak stepped into the circle. He had removed his armor. His black fur shone in the morning light. His muscles moved like snakes under his skin. He stretched his claws, each one as long as a knife. Elias stepped into the circle across from him. He wore simple clothes. He carried no weapon. He looked so small next to the massive warchief. So fragile, Kiraveth's heart was breaking. "Any last words, little creature?" Thalrak asked. Elias took a deep breath. "Just one. Humans have a saying. It is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." Thalrak laughed. "Philosophy from a dead thing. How touching." Then he attacked Dot. It was like watching lightning strike. Thalrak moved so fast that Elias barely saw him coming. The first blow caught him in the chest and sent him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, all the air leaving his lungs. Pain exploded through his body. The Felisari warriors cheered. "One hit!" they shouted. "The human falls in one hit." But Elias got up. He stood slowly, painfully, his chest screaming with agony. But he stood. He faced Thalrak again. He raised his fists. Thalrak was surprised. No one had ever gotten up from one of his blows so quickly. He frowned and attacked again. His claws raked across Elias's arm, drawing blood. His fist slammed into Elias's jaw, spinning him around. His knee crashed into Elias's stomach, doubling him over. Elias fell again. The world was spinning. Blood dripped from his wounds. Every part of his body was screaming at him to stay down, to give up, to die. He got up. The cheering from Thalrak's warriors grew quieter. The villagers watched with wide eyes. What was happening? Why was this small, soft creature standing up again? Why would he not stay down? Thalrak attacked with more fury. He hit Elias again and again. He threw him across the circle. He slammed him into the ground. Each blow should have killed a lesser creature. Each blow should have ended the fight. Elias got up every time. An hour passed. Thalrak was breathing hard now. Sweat matted his black fur. His attacks were slower, weaker. He could not understand what was happening. He had hit this human 100 times. He had broken bones and torn flesh. The creature should be dead. Why was he still standing? Elias was barely conscious. He could not see clearly. He could taste blood in his mouth. His legs were shaking so badly he could barely stand. But he stood. He always stood. What are you? Thalrak gasped. Elias looked at him through swollen eyes. I am human, he said. His voice was weak but steady. And we do not quit. Thalrak roared with frustration. He charged forward, putting everything he had left into one final attack. He swung his claws at Elias's throat, meaning to end this once and for all. But he was tired. Too tired. His movements were slow and sloppy. Elias saw it coming. He had been waiting for this moment. The moment when the Predator's explosive power finally ran out. The moment when endurance beat strength. He ducked under the swing. He grabbed Thalrak's arm and used the Warchief's own momentum against him. It was a simple move. A basic self-defense technique that any human child could learn. But it worked. Thalrak stumbled forward, off balance. Elias kicked his legs out from under him. The massive Warchief crashed to the ground, too exhausted to catch himself. He lay there in the dirt, gasping for breath, unable to rise. Silence fell over the valley. Elias stood over the fallen Warchief. He was broken and bleeding. He could barely stay on his feet. But he was standing, and Thalrak was not. It is over, Elias said. His voice was barely a whisper. Yield. Thalrak looked up at him. There was no anger left in those red eyes. Only confusion. Only awe. What are you? He asked again. I told you, Elias said. I am human. We do not fight harder. We fight longer. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Thalrak lowered his head to the ground. It was the sign of surrender, the sign of defeat. The valley erupted in cheers. The villagers rushed forward, shouting and crying with joy. Kiraveth ran to Elias and caught him as his legs finally gave out. She held him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. You did it, she whispered. You impossible creature. You did it. Elias smiled weakly. Told you. To have faith. Then he passed out. He woke up 3 days later. Kiraveth was beside him, as she had been the entire time. Her cubs were there too, watching him with worried eyes. The village? He asked. Safe, Kiraveth said. Thalrak's warriors have left. Many of them have joined us. They want to learn the human ways. They want to learn how a small, soft creature defeated the greatest warrior on the moon. Elias smiled. What about Thalrak? He lives. He has sworn to never attack the valley again. He is... Kiraveth paused, searching for the right word. Humbled. He does not understand what happened, but he respects it. Elias lay back and closed his eyes. Everything hurt. But they had won. The village was safe. The people were safe. 3 years later, the Valley of New Dawn had become a nation. Felisari from all over the moon had come to learn the human ways. The farms stretched for miles. The herds numbered in the thousands. Cities were being built. Schools were being opened. An entire civilization was rising from the ashes. Elias had been rescued. A Terran ship had finally found his beacon and come to investigate. But he had not left. He had asked to stay. He had asked to help. The Federated Council was debating whether to welcome the Felisari into galactic society. Many argued that they were too primitive, too dangerous. But Elias and Kiraveth traveled to the council together. They spoke of what had happened on the jungle moon. They spoke of change and growth and hope. Kiraveth stood before the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. Her cubs stood behind her, now grown into strong young Felisari. Elias stood beside her, his hand in hers. "My people were dying," she said. "We had forgotten how to live. We had forgotten how to build. All we knew was how to fight and kill and take. And then one human crashed into our world." She looked at Elias with love in her golden eyes. "He taught us that strength is not about claws and fangs. Strength is about standing up when everything tells you to fall down. Strength is about building instead of destroying. Strength is about caring for others even when you have nothing to gain." She turned back to the council. "We thought survival meant taking until nothing remained. He showed us it means giving until everything flourishes. Please, give my people a chance. Let us join you among the stars." The vote passed. Humanity welcomed the Felisari, and somewhere on a jungle moon, a small farm still grew beside a freshwater spring. It was the first of many, the beginning of a new world, a monument to the impossible truth that one human, armed with nothing but kindness and stubborn refusal to quit, could change the fate of an entire species. Kiraveth and Elias returned there sometimes, when the work of building a civilization became too much. They would sit by the spring where they had first met, watching their children play. "Do you regret it?" Kiraveth asked one evening. "Staying here? You could have gone home." Elias looked at her, at the fierce warrior princess who had become his partner, his friend, his family, at the cubs who called him father, at the world they had built together. "I am home," he said, thawed and under the light of 3 moons. The wild feline princess leaned her head against her human shoulder and purred. This was how it should have always been. This was home.